Hello, everybody, and welcome in the show. Mysteries with Mr. Belgique. I'm here today to read for you an article that I find and that Ross Gerasi had shared with us. And I'm going to read you this article from the San Diego Reader. I don't know if it's only on internet or if you can find it on real paper. I don't know. I don't know that. But it's about Donald Lee Cheney's daughter talking about his father, who wasn't for her apparently the Zodiac Killer. And she looks like angry, and I can understand. So I'm going to read you this article that you can find in the description below if you want to read it by yourself. But here we go. Let's go. This week was the birthday of my ex-dad, Donald Lee Cheney. That may seem like unusual things to take note of, especially since he died in 2009. But then, Donald Lee Cheney was the man who hired the Pomona police way back in January of 1970. That he feared his friend Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac Killer who murdered at least 5 people in the Bay Area in the late 60s, and who have may killed many more. That's something we don't know. Cheney mentioned, comment made by Allen, that early echo passage in the taunting letter the Zodiac wrote about his crime, as well as a Zodiac watch worn by Allen. Police eventually found reason to serve search warrants, and most investigators became convinced Allen was the killer, the Zodiac Killer. Although he was never charged with any of the Zodiac crime, and Donald Lee Cheney was even accused by some people of being the Zodiac Killer himself. I already took Don's doctor, who we'll call DCD, was one of the most interesting people I've met. Even before she told me about her dad, I met her in the late 70s. Before Robert Graysmith, before Robert Graysmith's 1986 books, Zodiac, first point the finger at Allen, who Don's family knew as Lee. And long before John Carroll Lynch portrayed Allen in David Fincher film by the same name, but even back then, she was convinced. I took it. I took it had to be Lee for 55 years now, she told me recently. DCD, Donald Lee Cheney's doctor, recall, I think last time I saw Lee was when my dad and I went fishing with him on his boat in the summer or early fall of 1967. For some reason, my mom and brother didn't go with us that time. I remember part of the day extremely well. It was the first time I was going to have my very own fishing pole. Okay, it was my mom's white fishing pole, but since she wasn't coming, it was to be my pole for the day. I was so excited. I remember Lee driving and towing his boat. When we got to the water, we discovered that my fishing pole was gone. I must have fallen out on the way. It must have fallen out on the way. I went from so happy, anticipating fishing with my own pole, to completely devastated. I cried so hard. I remember so clearly how disappointed I was. But beyond that, I was terrified that I was going to be in a big trouble because I lost my mom's pole. It's funny how we remember things so clearly and completely forget other things. Those other things involve Lee Allen. It was a day or two later, I told my parent, Uncle Lee touched my bottom. I don't remember that. According to my mom, that was the last time I saw Lee. After I said that, we never saw him again. As far as my mom knows, my dad only saw Lee once after that, on January 1st, 1968. In October of the year, this year, no, in 2000, in 2024, Netflix brought renewed interest in the famously unsolved case of the Zodiac Killer with the documentary series This is the Zodiac Speaking. The title is taken from his letter, but it had an unpleasant signification for DCD, the doctor of Don Cheney. If you watch the series, you may think you heard Don Cheney's voice as original police interview tape, saying that he last saw Alan in 1969. I had met Cheney a few times, and even I thought it was his voice at first, but I soon decided that it was someone attempting to sound like him, reading aloud from the transcript. Don Cheney's daughter concurred. This is not my dad's voice, she said. It is someone reading a transcript for what I believe to be the interview my dad did with Tom Vogt in 2000. The fake voice say, disturbed spirit. The Vogt interview is the only place I ever heard my dad use that phrase. Both Voigt and Zodiac author Gray Smith claim the last time my dad saw Lee was 1969, but it was January 1st, 1968. My dad started a new job in Pomona in late January 1968. He bought a house in Pomona on La Vita Avenue. I started in kindergarten in 1968 at Arroyo Elementary School. Lee's new Zodiac watch was still in the package. It came from Christmas 1967. You can read the original police report. Getting no facts wrong intentionally really chaps me hide. The discrepancy matter because he has led many Zodiac investigators, both amateur and professional, to accuse Don Cheney of changing a story. But said Don Cheney's daughter, my dad only became confused after the year, more than 3 decades later, when Tom Voigt convinced him it must have been in 1969. Before that, it was always 1968. In fact, he said 1968 in the Voigt interview, before being convicted otherwise. My dad remember helping Lee moving after his lost his teaching job. Because of this, Vogt said it must have been 1969 because Lee didn't get fired until spring of 1968. The thing is that Lee was fired more than once from teaching. Arthur Lee Allen taught at Travis Air Force Base, California, until reportedly being fired in 1963 for having a loaded weapon on his car on school grounds. Then, in 1966, Allen began teaching at Valley Springs Elementary in Valley Springs, California. When his teaching career is said to have ended in 1968, hour after he was fired for molesting a student. My dad helped Lee move after he was fired from the Travis teaching job, not Valley Spring. Don Cheney's doctor want to record correct for the sake of her father's reputation. In the interview with Tom Voigt, Cheney brings up the incident between Lee and his daughter. This caused many people to chatter online about why Cheney would even say stayed friends with Alan after such a transgression. He didn't, say Cheney's daughter. After, I said, Lee touched my bottom, my mom, my brother, and I never saw him again. That was probably summer of early falls 1968, 67, 1967. My dad only saw Lee once after that, a few months later, and that was New Year's Day, 1968, when he got home. He told my mom he didn't want to see Lee ever again, and he didn't. The belief that Cheney changed his story has even led some people to suspect the man himself. One YouTuber has built a channel and writing a book about Cheney. I think I know who she's talking about. Proposing that he is either the real Zodiac Killer or was Alan's accomplice. The YouTuber tracked down DCD online photo that he took from my Facebook page, cropped me out, and were used on his YouTube channel. I've seen his cropped version spread all over the place. With me cropped out, people are talking about how shifty my dads look. I prefer the truth of the full picture, but how to do that without jumping into the fray of the comment section? After the true crime crowd got hold of the alleged discrepancy, they were allowed to let go. Online debate raged over why Cheney waited years before notifying police of his suspicion about Allen. He didn't, said Don Cheney's daughter. It was in less than 3 months from the time my dad suspected Lee until he went to the police. My dad didn't become aware that Lee might be the Zodiac until the middle of October 1969. After he read an article in LA Times that quoted the letter talking about picking kids off and they came bouncing off the bus. He remembered Lee saying exactly the same thing. My dad wasn't the kind of person to jump on conclusion and run to the police with such serious accusation without careful consideration. He thought about it. His suspicions were based mostly on events from nearly 2 years before, 1968, that he had tried to put out of his mind. But reading that article, there was no reason to contact the police about a creepy conversation with a man known to be creepy, Arthur Lee Allen. Before speaking to the law enforcement, he talked with my mom. When they took, I was out of earshot. Sorry, I was out of earshot. I was well aware that adults say the most interesting thing when they took there were no kids around. I often sat quietly listening to the grown-ups talking in hushed tone. He had told my mom about what happened that New Year's Day in '68. They talked about the time Lee showed my dad how you could tape a flashlight to a gun and use it as a sight in the dark, a method reportedly used by Zodiac. They dispute the fact that Lee was extremely vindictive, and it might be dangerous for her family if my dad went to the police. They talk about doing the right thing. In the end, Cheney did wait, but not for years. He waited until after the holiday. It was a busy time for the year with Halloween, Thanksgiving, my sixth birthday, Christmas, and a new year coming. He wanted to be sure. He waited until he could talk to his friend, Lee's brother, and the best man at my parents' wedding. Donald Lee Cheney had in fact once been roommate with Arthur Lee Allen's brother, Ron Allen. Lee's brother and sister-in-law came to her house in Pomona and sat at her kitchen table with my parents. I did around the corner listening. My dad recounted his last visit with Lee, how he had gone over to Lee's basement and found him writing thank you notes from birthday and Christmas gifts. All he had, oh, Lee had asked him to help by putting stamp on the envelope. Cheney has mentioned licking those envelope stamps in interview, an act that some have accused Cheney of bringing up in order to deflect suspicion of his own DNA were ever found on the confirmed Zodiac letter. Donald Lee Cheney's daughter recalled, Lee's brother laughed about said he never licked stamps or have an envelope. He hated the taste. He always got someone else to lick them or use a damn sponge. Hell, he'd even get the dog to lick them at that point. I laughed out loud and gave away that I was listening. My mom came around the corner and suggested I go outside or to my room. I pretended to go to my room and then snuck back to continue listening. I was not going to miss a conversation that had dogs licking stamp, which is fun. She recalled, they talk about the way both Lee and Zodiac spell things wrong for fun. Oh, Lee spelled Christmas as Christ Mass with two S, just like Zodiac. Both Lee and Zodiac having fun with phonics. Just like we learn in school. Sound it out still echoes in my mind all these years later. Both Lee and Z's misspelling follow the rule took in Hooked on Phonic Lesson. She also recalled the talk about Lee being able to use both hands equally to write and do other things. They went over all the no dates and placed Zodiac's truck. They tried to approve it could be Lee. They could. They could. The four grown-ups were able to place Alan in the right place at the right time to be Zodiac, based on the murder known about at the time. They were also able to place him at several other unsolved murder sites. They talk about the time Lee had been visiting them in Pomona. If he had gone south instead of north when he left, it put him exactly in the right place at the right time for a couple that was killed on the beach in San Diego, February 5, 1964. Already a suspected Zodiac case by 1969. They knew he was in Riverside for the race when that girl was killed at the library, Chevy Jo Bates, on October 30, 31, 1966. 1966. They talk about another couple on a beach with a shack, Robert Domingo and Linda Edwards. They knew Lee was in the area at the time. June 4, 1963. There seems to be many couples killed on beach, and several times unsolved murder happened when Lee was visiting Southern California. They talked for quite a while. There was a lot of stuff that Lee had in common with Zodiac. They couldn't find any evidence that would rule Lee out. When they were done talking, Lee's brother say he absolutely could not be one to turn in his own brother for this, but he would hold it against my dad if he did. And that when the police came to question him, he would answer honestly. After that, my dad felt he had another option but to tell the police. It was pretty unlikely for it to not be Lee, all things considered. On January 10, 1970, Cheney drove to the Pomona police station to talk about his suspicion. Donald Cheney's daughter was 6 years old. She recalled being with her dad on that day. My mom, my brother, and myself waited in the car. When my dad got back in the car, he said, "Well, that's going in the wrong file." That really stuck with me because I had no idea what a wrong file was. I remember learning forward and speaking repeatedly what a wrong file. What's a wrong file? It's a trash can. Don Cheney didn't talk only to the Pomona police. When nothing came of that, my dad called our former neighbor from Concord. He was a cop with either the San Francisco Police Department or Concord Police Department. This guy knew my dad to be trustworthy and took him seriously. His commanding officer, however, did not. He said, "Everyone is turning in everyone." and nothing more happened. The Netflix documentary has Grace Smith getting this sequence of events backward a notable error. He said Concord, then Pomona. It was definitely the other way around. Cheney next talked to his friend and umpire Sandy Panzarella, who also knew Alan. Sandy was also one of my dad and Lee's brother's roommate while at Cal Poly. Sandy Panzarella decided he was going to get someone in law enforcement to take this seriously, despite the fact that his wife was adamant that he have nothing to do with it. She never likely and feared he would kill all of us when he found out who turned in. As a very successful businessman, Sandy had some clout. He called someone he knew at Manhattan Beach PD who contacted SFPD, and eventually Detective Armstrong and Toski came down and talked with my dad and Sandy at work, Science Dynamic in Torrance, California. Contra the narrative, said Donald Lee Cheney's daughter. My dad didn't wait very long to contact the police, but it did take a long time and multiple attempts to get anyone to listen. For decades, people have been twisting the fact and flat out lying about my dad and me. Some people have twisted things so far from reality that they think my dad was Zodiac. I was there at the beginning. I just want to remind everyone how the conversation began with the facts. Donald Lee Cheney's doctor did grant grant that the publicity repeat error about her dad. So, about her dad. While annoying and misleading and something heartbreaking, did yield some positive results. Consider the YouTuber who claimed that her dad was complicit in Zodiac crime. It was his insane lie about my dad that first made me feel a need to contact Dave Seaweather, who, as a boy, had accompanied Lee on holiday trips along with his sister Connie. In This is the Zodiac speaking, Dave related that Lee confessed to him that he was the Zodiac, and also that he drugged and molested Dave's sister Connie. Donald Lee Cheney's daughters say, I probably never would have found Connie again all these years later if I wasn't so concerned about all the lie. The first met on the beach in 1968, and oddly, that is a memory that stuck with both of us all this year. As for me finally speaking out, that credit goes to Cody. Donald Lee Cheney's daughter said that in the documentary, the seawater story was heavily edited. They could have done 6 hours of just the seawater and not covered it all. It's definitely worth watching, and I took it leave a lot out. They get most of it right. Almost more importantly, I've become quite close with Connie. Talking with her has answered so many unknown and forgotten questions for me. Most recently, I have remembered why I have always moved at cow. I couldn't explain why, but I always felt it was very important to more every time I saw a cow. Connie remembers Lee would always say, "Look, a deer," when he saw a cow, and then he pretended to shoot it with his hand and in the traditional finger gun gesture. Alan's killer pantomime, every time he saw a cow bother young DCD, who then as now is a devoted animal lover, is bother butter it bothered her so much that it never completely left her mind. I had long I had long forgotten why it felt so important to identify cow as cow. I find it comforting to remember why I feel the way I do. I often wonder why I had felt so strongly about cow and why it felt defiant to moo at them. I often don't know why I felt the way to do about things, but I do know my intuition is more accurate than my thought. She had other memory. I remember Lee singing. It made a lasting impression on me because it was so confusing. There was something about Lee that is difficult to explain. He had a way of communicating for beyond his words. He would sing this bouncy, upbeat song with a smile on his face and a glint in his eye. But the story the songs told were not happy. They were awful tales of death and depression, and it seems delight to be telling them. So recalled Alan singing Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. I don't know the song, but hang down your head, Tom Dooley. As folk song about a man being hanged for murdering a woman. Today, Donald Lee Cheney's daughter maintains a low online profile. She requests her real name not be used for this article, mainly due to the unwelcome and often unfriendly scrutiny from an online world that range from amateur sleuth to full on murder junkie. I find I find I'm quite suspicious lately, she said, with good reason. Few unsolved crimes have achieved the widespread notoriety of the Zodiac case, and the interactivity of the internet stokes an almost unquenchable under for more data and discussion. The problem is that it has been decades, and every year the fact get twisted and misinterpreted. It is the worst game of telephone I know of, I imagine. If you want to know the truth about Lee, you should listen to the people who knew Lee, the people who were there when the conversation started. For Don Lee Cheney's daughter, the mystery about the Zodiac was not who he was. It was why can they prove it? as Don Cheney's daughter, I knew it would be extremely unlikely for Zodiac to be anyone other than Lee. There are a lot of folks spinning wild theory on the subject. I like the truth to be among the theory available for discussion. Donald Lee Cheney's daughter offered one last story. In 1991, Ralph Spinelli, while trying to get a better deal for his crime, armed robbery, told Lee it came to him looking for a job as an hitman. He was going to do something big in San Francisco. After the cab driver was killed, Paul Stein, and the pieces of blood-stained shirt was sent to the press, Spinelli claimed, Lee returned and said, "Do you believe me now? I'm Zodiac." Based on that, Judge Boward of the Valero Police reopened the case. He contacted my mom and dad and tracked down the surviving witness. He got a search warrant for Lee's house. The police had only searched his trailer when they got to the previous warrant based on my dead testimony. Just recently, Connie had the realization that the reason Mr. Allen was constantly muttering about Georgie Georgie Poggy at the time was because Judge Boward was on his heels. They were just about to arrest him in 1992 when he died. It was the article from the San Diego Reader. The link is available here on the description below. I would like to say hello to Richard. Hello, Richard. Donald, Duck. Hello. Dark side of the moon, like always. Captain Jenks, thank you to be here. Edward Cypher, thank you to be here. Thank you to everyone to be here. I know it's a different time, but I need to do that now because after I have stuff to do. But yeah, it was, she said in the press. So if you want to read it by yourself, because I know that my accent is not very always good and sometimes I misspelling some word and it's not always easy, but I'm going to make another video tomorrow. Let's talk about the Zodiac Mystery with the panel, episode 25. It will be great, I'm sure. I know that Mr. Ned Dehan is already in. I don't know for the other, but I know that Ned will be there. And on Tuesday, I will receive Dr. Silkman, Tony, from the Full Play channel to talk about the Delphi case and make some analysis on the interview that I have made. I have made the first interview. I was supposed to do the second interview, and maybe I'm going to do it, but maybe with Tony now. And he made an excellent PowerPoint presentation for Tuesday. So Tuesday, 12 p.m. my time, 7:30 p.m. his time in Australia. So, but it will be great because it will be a lot of debate. And if you want to contact me, is there. This is the Zodiac at gmail.com. Cheryl, hi. It's great to see you. It's great to see you all, guy. Thank you very much to be here. It's great. So, tomorrow, this is the panel, 9 p.m. my time, Belgium time. Uh, on Tuesday, it's the Delphi case with Dr. Silkman from Full Play. And I going to wish you to spend a nice weekend and see you tomorrow. Bye. Take care of you, my friend. Take care.